Okay, so today we're going to try to tackle something pretty heavy. One
Yeah.
of those things that you see in the news all the time,
Right.
you hear about it constantly, and it just seems like it's never ending.
It's been going on for so long.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
We're going to really try to break it down,
You know,
get into the nitty-gritty of it.
Yeah, we're going depth today, a real deep dive using all the sources you sent over.
Yeah, you sent me a ton of stuff.
I did.
Articles, books, historical accounts.
I want to make sure we had like a good overview,
Yeah,
you know?
for sure.
The history is so important.
Totally. And I think it's important for us to acknowledge right off the bat
Yeah.
that this is like a super sensitive topic.
Absolutely.
So our goal here is to be objective as possible.
Right.
Present the facts.
On the sources.
Exactly. Drawing from the sources that you've provided.
Sounds good.
So where do we even begin with this?
I mean, I think the best place to start is the beginning. We got to go back in time.
Okay, so let's hop in our time machine.
All right.
Back to the early 1900s.
Early 20th century.
Okay, Ottoman Empire.
Gone.
Kaput.
Right. And that's really when things start to get complicated in this region.
Yeah, I mean, you've got all this power vacuum.
Exactly.
Competing interests.
And then you have the British Mandate period.
Right. You mentioned this in your research.
Yeah, the British were trying to manage things,
Right.
but it was a very, 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 very complex situation.
And then in 1917, boom, the Balfour Declaration,
Oh, the Balfour Declaration.
which is still talked about today.
Constantly.
Yeah, people are still arguing over.
What it meant, exactly.
Yeah.
It promised a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine.
Right.
But what did that actually mean? Like a state? A cultural homeland?
Right. There's all this ambiguity.
Yeah, and you see that reflected in the sources I sent you.
Yeah, some sources are like full-on statehood was the goal.
Right.
Others are like, no, it was more about
For culture.
yeah, cultural presence
Yeah, and of course this ambiguity just fueled tensions
between.
between the Jewish and Arab populations who were both living there.
Right. And these tensions obviously didn't just disappear.
Unfortunately not.
Cut to 1948.
Big year.
Huge.
The State of Israel is created.
And then war breaks out.
The first Arab-Israeli war.
Yeah, one of the sources you sent, like a historical account,
Oh, yeah.
it really puts you right there in that moment.
It's powerful stuff.
Super intense.
Yeah, you can really feel the chaos and the fear.
Totally.
And for the Palestinians, this war resulted in the Nakba.
The Nakba meaning.
Catastrophe.
Catastrophe, yeah.
Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians were displaced.
And it's something that
Still shapes.
yeah, it's still so central to their identity.
Absolutely.
When it comes up over and over again.
In the sources.
Yeah, it's a wound that hasn't healed.
It's a trauma that's been passed down through generations.
And this displacement, along with, a whole bunch of other issues.
Like Jerusalem.
Jerusalem.
A city holy to both Jews and Muslims.
Huge sticking point.
Absolutely.
So we've got this historical backdrop, right?
Yeah.
But we need to talk about present day too, because things haven't exactly calmed down.
No, they haven't.
You specifically mentioned the Oslo Accords in your notes.
Oh, the Oslo Accords? Yeah.
What were those all about?
Well, they were a big deal at the time.
Okay.
Signed in the 90s, there was supposed to be this framework for peace.
Okay.
A two-state solution.
Two states living side by side.
Exactly. Israel and an independent Palestine.
That sounds pretty good.
On paper, yeah.
But
there were a lot of problems.
problems
Well, you see it in the sources.
yeah.
Right. Some people were super hopeful.
Yeah, okay.
Others were skeptical from the start.
Skeptical why?
I mean, there were a lot of reasons.
Okay.
Like the expansion of Israeli settlements in the West Bank.
Right, that's a big one.
It's considered illegal under international law, but Israel argues it differently.
And it definitely makes that two-state solution a lot harder.
It complicates things for sure.
And then you've got the recent escalations in violence.
Yeah, things have been really bad lately.
Especially in Gaza.
Gaza's a really tough
So
situation.
you sent me a bunch of news articles about it.
Yeah, it's been all over the news.
It's a really densely populated area, right?
Yeah. And it's governed by Hamas.
Who Israel considers a terrorist organization.
Right, and you see all these different perspectives on what's causing the violence.
Like what kind of perspectives?
Well, some people point to Hamas's rocket attacks.
Okay.
Others criticize Israel's blockade of Gaza.
Right, which has caused a lot of suffering.
A huge humanitarian crisis.
So basically, there's no easy answers here.
Nope.
This conflict is...
A mess.
It's really, really complicated.
And deeply rooted in history and trauma.
So where do we go from here?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah, I mean, we've covered a lot.
We've barely scratched the surface.
But even just scratching the surface, it's clear this isn't something that's going to be solved overnight.
No, it's going to take a lot of work.
And a lot of understanding.
And empathy.
Yeah, with so much emotion on both sides.
Right. How can we even begin to bridge that divide?
That's a really good question.
Something to think about for sure.
And I think that's a good place to leave it for today.
Yeah,
This deep dive has been intense,
it has.
but hopefully it encourages everyone listening to keep learning,
Yes.
to keep exploring different viewpoints,
Absolutely.
to keep asking those tough questions.
Because that's the only way we're going to make any progress.
Exactly. So keep digging, keep learning, and keep those conversations going.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And that's it for this deep dive.
Until next time.
See you then.